Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the end of financial year webinar for Exo. I trust you're all enjoying these beautiful winter days we're having. Okay, just the meeting etiquette for you guys. Just make sure that you're on mute throughout the session and that your camera is off if you're not wanting us to see you all. Raise your hand if you want to say something or put something into the chat. If you have any questions, just put them in the chat. Morgan will keep an eye on it for us. And if I don't get to answer all your questions, I will contact you and follow up after the meeting. Okay. So today's agenda, we're going to cover the ATO updates that have come out. We're going to recover how to enter your reportable fringe benefits for the end of financial year, and reconciling your payroll for the year end, and then single touch payroll finalisations and your STP phase 2 stuff, which would have already been covered last year. That probably you guys have covered that already, but I'll just show you some of the new settings that you can use to check your STP submissions. Okay, so as of this morning, Morgan would have sent out an email to all of you. You should have in your inbox notification that the compliance release has been sent out. So this is available now, so you guys can go ahead and book in for your upgrades. Before your first pay run in July, this will need to be installed. So if you'd like us to do that upgrade for you, please just respond to the invitation that you got in your email and we can book you in for that. Just let us know when your first pay run is in July, when your last pay run was, and your preferred day, and we can sort that out for you. So this compliance update contains the following changes. So there'll be the increase to the super guarantee, which goes up to 11%. It's going to be auto-updated when you first start your first pay run in July with a July payment date. It will pop up and have a message for you saying that the super guarantee amounts will be updated and you need to say yes to that. It will run through and do the 11% changes for you. What it won't change for you automatically is the maximum super contributions cap, and those you'll have to manually update if you're using super caps for your employees. Your minimum thresholds should be at 0 as of last year. The annualisation for study and training support loans. So if you look in the release notes for that, there are thresholds for those that need to be updated. The annualisation for your ETP payments, that will also need to be manually updated. Again, the figures are in the release notes. The child support protected earnings changes, again, a manual change, and the Western Australia, if this applies to you, the state payroll tax changes will also be in those release notes, and there's details there on how to make those changes in payroll. We'll be providing these notes for you afterwards, and there's a link here to the release notes for this version. There is a protect list that we'll be giving you as well, and we have got guides and stuff we can send out to you if you require them. In that checklist is the details that you need to check, how to update and report your fringe benefits, how to reconcile your payroll, and to send those finalisation submissions, which we'll cover today. Okay, so the first thing you'll need to do is go through and just check employee details, particularly for new employees this year. So you need to make sure that they have correct last names, dates of birth, tax file numbers, address lines and things like that, although you probably would have found that you'll get errors in your STP submissions if some of these things are missing. So those things do need to be checked. And then you can go through and do your reportable fringe benefits. So this involves adding pay items if you don't already have them, but most of you should have those set up by now. You're not new to Exo. Create a pay run, which will be a one-off pay. Your pay run start date needs to be no earlier than the 1st of the 4th, 2022, and no later than the 31st of the 3rd, 2023, because that's the FBT year. And the physical pay date should also be in that period of time. So usually you would make it the 31st of March. You'll tick not to send it to the ATO. And if you're going to add fringe benefits for employees who've been terminated, you will have already needed to reinstate them. And the pay run for those will need to be dated earlier than their termination date, because you will need to re-terminate them as at their termination dates afterwards. So the pay items that you'll need to have set up, in the main settings, set up payroll, you have to have whether you're exempt from FBT. Even if you are exempt from the FBT, you still have to report the items. You just won't be liable for the fringe benefits tax, but you still need to report them to the ATO. Sorry, one of my screens has just blanked. Okay. So you'll need to have your non-cash benefits set up, and they might be type 1 or type 2. You'll have to look up the ATO guidelines to know which ones you'll be using. They're usually set up as a fixed dollar amount, and then set up with 0 in here means that you can enter that dollar amount when you're doing the pay run, and usually we tick the override tax. Then we create a one-off pay run. So if I just flick into Exo Payroll, there's a few different ways you can create a one-off pay, but you will be familiar with that. And so you'll create your one-off. That period end date will need to be before the 31st of March, physical payment date as well. And then do not send to the ATO, and we're going to create that new pay. We're not going to pay all employees because it's unlikely that all of them will have fringe benefits. So we're just going to go. And then just add the specific employees that you wish to record those for. And no, we won't copy their standard pay settings because we're not giving them a normal pay. So in each of these employees, we're going to add a non-cash benefit. And we're just going to add and find our fringe benefit type. You'll just put in the value of that fringe benefit, whatever it might have been. Ensure that you've got the cost centre that you're wanting it to go to. And then click Save. You can see it gives you an overall 0 value pay because it's just for reporting. And then we save that. You do the same for your next employee. You might have different fringe benefit types set up. But we'll record those according to the types that they are. And then save. And when you're finished, you're just going to close and update that pay run. Doing your back because that's necessary. Sorry, it doesn't like my backup path. Okay. And it's not going to send that to the ATO because it's a 0 value pay. Once you've completed doing that, you'll need to go into your single touch payroll and you can do an update submission. You can just do it for all employees because it doesn't hurt, or you can do it for the selected ones that you like, that you've just done those changes for. And then we're going to send that to the ATO. Now, mine scale because I don't have STP set up correctly. Even though it says it's successful, it wasn't. And I'm going to go into my submissions, and you can see that update submission sitting there. Any of these submissions, if you do get an error on it, you can go into the details, and there will be an errors tab sitting at the end here. You can check to see what information was missing. Okay. Okay, so we're going to move on to reconciling your payroll. So this involves checking your postings, your leave entitlements and provisions, and superannuation are sort of the key areas you want to look at. It is always good practice to reconcile your payroll monthly, and June should be no different. The difference is that you will need to check that your fringe benefits have been entered. You're going to check your eligible termination payments and STP data is correct, that you haven't had failed payrolls going through. If you have any issues with those and you have errors in there you don't understand, by all means contact us and we can help you with that. So the three areas we're going to go through with reconciling your payroll are checking that your payroll data is correct. So your employee records, your tax file numbers, any of those issues that are causing errors on your submissions. You're going to check that your postings in the GL are matching your payroll, and check that the outstanding balance of the payroll related balance sheet accounts that are reflected in your GL matching and the accurate balances at year end. So we're going to compare the two. So we need to make sure we're also looking at work cover, superannuation and payroll tax as well. And to do that, we're going to run some reports out of payroll, investigate your discrepancies, journals or adjustments in payroll that are necessary, and check that there's no settings that are wrong. So if you have any issues, like I said, just let us know and we can have a look at those settings for you. So all these things need to be done before you run your finalisation for the year. Your finalisation is letting the ATO know that you've checked everything and these are the final figures for the employees. Of course, you can resubmit a finalisation if you do discover something is incorrect or an employee lets you know that something doesn't look right. So checking your postings. To successfully reconcile and troubleshoot your variances, you need to have an understanding of the relationship between payroll cost centres and the general ledger. Most of you are very experienced with this now, so you understand how your payroll cost centres are linking through to your GL. And you should regularly reconcile the balance of the payroll and make sure that everything does post through correctly. I would also probably check in payroll that all your postings have actually gone through. So when you go to do your posting to your other system, if you're using Exo, you shouldn't have a list of unposted batches sitting here, but if you're using other means, by all means do check that you have actually posted everything through. Okay, so you should regularly reconcile the balances of payroll with what has gone through to the GL. And the different reports we can use to do that are these different reports here. So the cost analysis report, the general ledger report, and the trial balance report in payroll, and your trial balance from your financial system as well. So that we have a good practice guide as well, which covers this, that you can read, which if you want to get a copy of that, just let us know, we can send that through. So the costing analysis report, I'll just run that now in payroll. There's all different reports in here, but costing analysis is in the financials tab. And I've got some of my settings already saved and preset here, but do ensure that you're running your physical pay dates for the financial year using the selected button. Ensure you're choosing any pay frequency in case you have multiple day run frequencies. And in your report options, we just want to show a summary at this stage. You can always come back and show a detail later. Make sure that you're not hiding any of your types and you're running it by the physical pay date. But this is a good way of seeing by your departments and then by your cost centre breakdowns what you're seeing in the general ledger report. So these figures should reflect your general ledger report, but it does a breakdown by your cost centres. So you can compare that across to how these report into your GL. So you can see your superannuation, non-cash and work cover separate there, along with your earnings, allowances and accruals. And you should be able to compare that. Okay, so the other one we should run is the trial balance report. Again, choosing your dates, any pay frequency, physical pay date. So this doesn't show totals by your cost centre, but you do see by employee what's being reported to the ATO for each person, by each payment type, and what, your deductions, pre and post tax, totals like that. So gives you a good summary for each person. And again, you can break this down into detail if you think there's something that doesn't look right. And then your general ledger report. Again, choosing the same dates, any pay frequencies, making sure we're using physical pay date and that none of your options are hidden. We're going to run it by general ledger code because it'll give us a good summary to compare across. You can see there it shows you what the GL postings should be for the year. Again, you can break this down into periods if you need to compare to individual postings. So I won't go into the financial side of things, but those reports should give you sufficient information to do comparisons. And if you have any issues, again, let us know and we can find out what those discrepancies might be for you. So you do need to check your leave entitlements and reconcile your provisions as well back to the GL. So you will need to check that you've cleared all the leave accrued for terminated staff. Sometimes when you do a termination, if there's still pay items in that same pay run, it can do a minor accrual after the end of the pay run. So just go and check that those balances are all cleared out, particularly long service leave where it's not paid out upon termination. And those should be adjusted back out so that they're not adding into your accrual balances. You need to check the balance of your GL provision account is in line with the calculated entitlements in payroll in your leave balances report. So it's really important that you do run this leave entitlement report before starting your first pay run in the new financial year. And that's because the leave entitlement balances can only be run as at today. There's no backdating of the leave balances. They get updated at the end of each pay run and you can't really run that report going backwards. So really, we would recommend best practice is to run this report after each pay run, and that way you have a balance as at the end of that pay run. If you don't have that, you can run it at a certain period. You might run that at the end of each month. And the reason we recommend doing this is that when staff have pay increases, those additional accrual amounts that you're now going to be liable to pay wouldn't have been journaled across when the pay run was done at the lower pay rate. So you will need to make those adjustments into your GL periodically as employees get pay increases. We're going to run the leave balances report and run the general ledger report, and then run the leave balances report after you update the last pay run in June. So we should run one. Should have run one last year and then run them again this year, and then you get a total for the year, and then you can do those adjustments. So if I just go into payroll again, I run that leave report. I'm going to run it by employee code. Again, choosing any pay frequency. We're going to make sure that we show our terminated employees, and to show RDO balances, you can do that. Or if there's any user-defined leaves that you have in there, and we're going to preview that screen. So this will show you the hours of their balances as at now. And then you can compare that across to your GL. So for each leave type, the opening balance of your June last year leave plus the leave accrued from the general ledger report less the leave taken from the general ledger report should equal the closing balance from June this year. Okay. And there is a leave taken report as well if you want to run that you can run. So yeah, we do recommend that you check these at least quarterly and keep that provision account in line with your payroll provisions. Do adjusting journals into your GL to fix that if it's not matching. So to reconcile and troubleshoot your variances, we talked about this, you need to have an understanding of how that works. We've run those reports. We've done our leave entitlements provisions. And then we can do correcting entries. So if you find any issues with your leave balances in payroll, you can do adjustments in the individual employee, either through the employee records. You go into here. If you find there's something wrong with the annual leave accrual, you go into the details and you can do an adjustment in here. And we usually, because we're coming to year end, you just adjust the carryover. Or you can do some adjusted accrual in here as well, okay, to make sure that those all line up. So I would adjust payroll first, then run all those reports again and make sure that it lines up with your GL. Move on to reconciling your superannuation. So you should have at least two superannuation GL accounts set up. And again, you're all very experienced with this. So you've got your expense and your payables account. And payments for superannuation being made from that super payables account to your nominated clearing account. So when you're doing your super payments each month or quarter and you make that payment, it should be clearing out the super payables account. So if there's any remaining balance or discrepancies, then you should investigate where those amounts are incorrect. Check how far back your variance goes by reconciling it to your payroll, and then use the super reports, which are the super summary, cost analysis and trial balance. We're going to use those to find those discrepancies. Sometimes we have found that employees' superannuation is going to the wrong cost centre, so it ends up in the super expense account instead of into your super payables account. So that can be one thing to double check if you see a discrepancy. So the movement of your provisions account less the payments made should match the movement of your superannuation transactions inquiry for that same period. So let's just go back to payroll again. And I'll have a look at the super funds. So in your super funds, there's a few things that we recommend that you do. And when you do your upgrade, there's a couple of things we need to do as well. So the RESC box should be unticked for your super guarantee, but you'll find in the new version now, when you choose salary sacrifice type, it automatically gets ticked. But do just double check that any historical ones that has been updated with the upgrading of your versions. If you have any discrepancies on salary sacrifice items, it's possible that this was not ticked at some point. So you'll need to do an adjustment if that's the case, or check it anyway. So on your super guarantee items, like I said, when you start your first pay run where the physical pay date is dated in July of this year, it will prompt you to update the super rates to 11%, and you need to say yes to that prompt. It will run through and update all of these to the 11%. If you want to check them, you can. I always recommend in this screen, scrolling all the way back to the beginning until you see this first record thing popping up in the right corner, and then scroll all the way through each one. You go through some of these salary sacrifice first, looking at all your super guarantees, making sure that it's got the 11%, and making sure that you update your maximum earnings base now if you're using a cap for your super. Scroll through each one of them until you get to the end, because once you hit exit, it's going to want to recalculate, and we all know that can take minutes or a matter of up to half an hour, depending how many super funds you have in there. If you need to create an adjustment for a super guarantee entry to adjust something for an employee, you will need to have a one-off or a separate adjustment type. So this one's set up as a percentage of the gross pay. It's very difficult to do an adjustment for an employee based on a percentage because you're not actually paying them anything in an adjusting pay. So we set up a fixed dollar amount superannuation like this one. It's still a super guarantee type, but we're going to leave the amount at 0 so that we can put the amount that we want to adjust into the pay manually. I usually say to clear the minimum max earnings base because we don't want that interfering. You give it a name that indicates to you that it's different to the normal super guarantee entry that you're putting onto a pay run. So put the word fixed in there or adjustments or something like that. Choose the same super provider and make sure that you've got your correct cost centre. And of course, your liabilities, same as you would for normal super entries. And you'll need to create one of those for each super provider where you need to do an adjustment. Okay, then save it, exit. It does our recalculation. Thankfully, I don't have much in there. And then you can go and do those adjustments again on a one-off pay. So again, creating a one-off or whichever frequency it is, making sure that you do the physical payment date within the period that the adjustment is for and create that pay. When we pay all our employees, we're just going to add again the employee that requires the adjustments or multiple employees. I don't want to copy standard settings. I'm just going to put it into the superannuation. Now you'll see that their normal super fund is still there, but that's okay. We're going to go and find the, pick the wrong employee, but I'm just going to use this one example anyway. It does complain that there are 2 super guarantee transactions, but that's okay. It's just a warning. So let's just pretend that this person is normally with industry. And in here, we're going to put the amount of the adjustment that needs to be paid. Okay. You'll see here it doesn't have a member ID because we haven't used it for this member before, but you can just go and copy it from their other super line and then pop it back in here. Okay. And that's it. Yes, I'm going to save that. And again, that's now reportable and it will come up in your reports to be paid in your next super payment. The adjustments are also, it's handy to know how to do those adjustments if an employee actually changes super funds mid-period and you've already processed a couple of pay runs with their old fund, but you haven't made any payments to it yet, all those payments to go to the new super fund. You can do a negative adjusting entry in here. You can put in a negative amount to one fund and a positive amount to another fund to move those funds into the correct super fund on your reports. And then it'll all go to the new super fund. So you can finalise the pays once you've done that, and then it's ready for running your reports again. I'm not going to send that today. So in the super summary report, which is one of the ones we recommend that you run, you're going to run this by employee code. Again, a selected period, and you can do this by quarter, do it by the year. Again, physical pay date, and we want to show terminated employees as well. Oh, and my pay run's having an error. Okay, so you can see there the earnings that are liable for super. You can see that there is no employer contributions for some reason. Something's wrong with mine. But you'll be able to see here whether your salary sacrifice amounts look correct or whether your employer contributions look correct. I'm just going to double check my settings again. So yeah, that gives you your summary anyway, and you should be able to check those against. So now my employer contributions are coming up. So these amounts should cross-check to your general ledger report, and you can see the total of all the contributions that should have been made. So yes, check that against your general ledger accounts as well in your financials. Okay. And again, checking those against your trial balance and cost analysis, they should all match up to be the same figures. So this is your best practice end of period checklist, and we've got the full, a link to the full period instructions from MYOB. Obviously upgrading to the current compliance release before your first pay run. So check in for that. Doing your reportable fringe benefits, updating any historical pays for working holiday makers. I just wanted to mention that one because we have had a few customers who weren't sure how to do that when the new STP2 came in. So in your single touch payroll here, if you're having issues with income stream types or cessation reasons, there's now 4 new settings here in your single touch payroll menu. So you can actually go and if you've got an employee that has the incorrect income stream type and maybe it was changed part the way through the year, you can go and look at that employee and see what the income stream type is. All of mine in the demo, unfortunately, are all ordinary salary and wages, so they're not, you know, seasonal workers or what have you, but you can check here. And if it was incorrect, you can change to the correct income stream type, tick the pay runs where it was incorrect and make that change. And again, there's a country code there if that needs to be updated to make sure that they're all in line and will send through correctly. You can also go and update any cessation reads if they were incorrect for, one or two pay runs, but they should all be up to date with the STB2 changes. And you can check all of your income stream types for your employees in this screen as well. Going to do all your reports as we've discussed. Do your reconciliations against your general ledger. Do any adjustments that are required in your payroll and in your general ledger, depending where the discrepancies might be. And then once you're happy with that, do an end of year backup of your payroll. And we do recommend that you put that in a different location to your other backups in case, people do a regular clean out of your backups because they can fill up your drives fairly quickly. So yeah, take this one and put it separately with your end of year stuff. And then you would do your finalisation to the ATO. I'll just show you. Finalisation is in your single touch menu. Where we did our update before, you can now do a finalisation. Always tick all employees. That will include all your active and terminated employees. Check that you're doing it for the current financial year up here. You can actually do one for the previous financial year if you discover in July that you need to do a resubmission for somebody where something was incorrect. You may have made those adjustments. You can come back in and choose the previous financial year, given that we would already be in July, and you can select just that employee and do another resubmission. But I'm going to send this to the ATO. It will fail because I'm only on my demo. But again, if we go back into our submissions, you can see separate from a pay run submission, there is actually a finalisation submission. We can view the details of that. And you can look through the pay items for those employees. If you're doing this for a real system, there will be additional tabs there as well. And again, you can export these and have a look at them in Excel if you need to. The other thing you can do, but it's entirely optional, but you can actually lock down your end of financial year. So, sorry, I'm just having a look here. So you can see here, we can enter a date that you can lock down your financial year. That's still locked down at last year. If you've just got one or two people doing payroll and you know that they're not going to go and do entries into the prior financial year, then it's not entirely necessary. But putting a date here just stops you from entering any more adjustments or entries into the payroll for the prior year. If you find that you need to, though, you can just change this date and go and do that. So with your finalisation, obviously complete your last pay, send it to the ATO, do your reconciliation, and then send your finalisation event to the ATO. That's the finalisation screen I was showing you before, and where to do the closing of the year. Don't forget your changes that you need to do for the new financial year. And just a little disclaimer that all the configuration stuff we've mentioned today is just examples. Your settings might be slightly different. And of course, always get advice from your accountant or your tax agent because, yeah, we're not here to give advice on how or what things should be reported as, just to give you software advice. Okay. This is our payroll team Kathy, who you're all familiar with, I'm sure, who's now our not just a senior support consultant, but she's our team leader. Greg, who's new to our team, but is a payroll and Exo consultant. Myself and Jennifer, who are now also both doing Exo and advanced, but we're here for you for your Exo support. Okay. If you need any help, you can go to the Exo Employer Services Education Centre, which is accessible through the help menu in payroll. There's links to them here as well, which you'll receive. And of course, our own knowledge base on our website. You can go to the support menu and choose we have an end of financial year landing page for all the things we've talked about today. There's some guides there and the release notes from MYOB as well. And we've also got links here straight to the release notes. And there's also end of financial year guides and white papers also on the Education Centre if you need them. Okay, does anybody have any questions at all? If you're too shy to post any questions here, or you don't feel like you want to talk in front of everyone, feel free to contact us or to put more stuff in the chat as we will leave this open for a minute or two, or email us directly and we'll be happy to help you out. Thanks very much, everyone, for attending.